Education Committee to order. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Brattin.
Here.
Hudson.
Here.
Gregory.
Here.
Henderson.
Here.
Nuremberg.
Here.
Schroer.
Here.
Weber.
Here. Quorum being established, we're going to move into hearing bills. I know we have a particular order that's on the hearing schedule, but because of some testimony that's got to catch a flight, we're going to do a little out of order. So we're going to start with Senator Hudson's 909, I believe. Then I'm going to kick over to my 948, and then we're going to go to Senator Gregory's bill. So, Senator, you may begin when ready. Please, if you're giving testimony, we have a lot of weighted bills this morning, so I know there's going to be a lot of testimony, but please keep it clear to the point so we can be as respectful of people's times as possible. So, Senator, you may begin when ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Much appreciated. Appreciate the time today. For the record, Brad Hudson, Missouri State Senator, District 33, here to present to you Senate Bill 909, also known as the Safeguarding Personal Expression at K-12 Schools, or SPEAKS Act. This creates provisions safeguarding students' political and ideological expression at public schools, in addition to current protections for religious expression. The Act additionally prohibits discrimination against student clubs on the basis of their religious, political, or ideological viewpoints, or any requirement that the members of the club adhere to the club's sincerely held beliefs, comply with the club's conduct standards, or further the club's mission, as such mission is defined by the club. This act shall not be construed to limit school districts' ability to restrict speech that is not protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. Speech that is so offensive that a student is effectively denied equal access to educational opportunities, or conduct that intentionally, materially, and substantially disrupts school operations or the expressive activity of another individual in a campus space exclusively reserved for such activity. The bill provides that any person or student organization harmed by a violation of this act shall have a private cause of action against the school as described in the act. Any person or student organization aggrieved by a violation of this act may assert such violation as a defense or counterclaim in any disciplinary action or in any civil or administrative proceeding. The state waives immunity under federal law and consents to be sued in federal court for claims arising under this act. This committee and the entire assembly of the legislature, in an overwhelming bipartisan vote, demonstrated the importance of protecting belief-based student groups on college campuses last year by passing my Senate Bill 160. The SPEAKS Act extends those same protections to K-12 students. Through projects, written assignments, clothing choices, and club association, students should be able to express their political, ideological, and religious beliefs free of persecution or ridicule. Today's students are tomorrow's community leaders, educators, and voters, and that's why our public schools should be a place where students learn to think, debate, and grow, not a place where their voices are policed, censored, and silenced. Safeguarding free speech for every student is a bipartisan issue, guaranteeing all students the right for their voices to be heard without fear of punishment. And I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Senator, for your bill. Does anybody have any questions? Senator, proceed.
Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
Okay, so first of all, schools. All schools should be safe spaces for all students. Would you agree with that?
I believe that students have rights under the Constitution of the United States of America, just as we do, God-given rights that are recognized by the Constitution, and those rights do not stop at the schoolhouse door.
Okay, so what is to prevent a group that is formed by students from disseminating hate speech?
So as I was talking about in my opening there, and very similarly to the Senate Bill 160 that was passed last year, there is nothing in the legislation that I'm presenting that would not allow education institutions to take reasonable steps to make sure that there are not things allowed that are not protected speech, that disrupt the learning environment, that are problems of that nature.
Okay, so if it disrupts the learning environment, then the school can step in?
The school can step in if there is something going on that does not allow for example, if there's someone is expressing something in such a way that the particular environment is not an environment anymore conducive to learning, conducive to having order in the classroom, and those sorts of things.
Okay. And, you know, it goes, as I'm thinking through history and the black armbands, for example, there's a lot that I can see playing out here, right? Whether it's a group of students that come in with Antifa hats, Democratic Socialist, one thing after another that all of a sudden, right, you're going to have conversations that start to ensue. And I could see that disrupting a school environment. Wouldn't you agree?
I would say, Senator, that, you know, the First
Socialism-
Amendment of the United States Constitution is very broad.
Yeah.
And it allows people to have freedom to express themselves in ways that you don't necessarily agree with or I don't necessarily agree with.
And I know there's a lot, we got a lot of bills, so, and we could probably, we'll talk this through, I'm sure, extensively
All right.
as the process proceeds, but just very quickly. So a group of students want to form a communist club. What happens if there's do you need a school sponsor for that? And what happens if nobody wants to sponsor that club?
So there's nothing in my legislation that would require, for example, if you remember in Senate Bill 160, when the concern came up with regard to particular groups that might want to form on campuses, there was nothing in my legislation that said that the institution could not require there be a sponsor, could not require there be a certain number of students and that
So
sort
the group
of
of
thing.
students form their communist club, they wear their communist shirts, hats everywhere, and that's going to be fine, correct?
We are not prohibiting the school from being able to establish and enforce reasonable standards to make sure that the learning environment is appropriate.
Okay. What happens, let's talk about the penalty provisions in here. So there's a monetary reward of $5,000 if a court finds that a school has violated some provision of your bill.
So, and I want to be very clear here, Senator, and I appreciate you bringing that up. The case with this piece of legislation, similarly to the case with Senate Bill 160, is we have to have something in the legislation that has teeth, but we don't ever want that to have to happen, right? This is not a piece of legislation that is aimed at encouraging litigation. This is a piece of legislation that is aimed at codifying in statute what the First Amendment to the Constitution already allows, so there are clear directions. There's a clear understanding in educational institutions throughout the state that the First Amendment will be protected.
Okay.
We have to have teeth to the legislation, but it is not my desire for there to be litigation. It's my desire for students' First Amendment rights to be protected.
And understood, but again, looking at that penalty provision part, incredibly vague, so any party, again, we could talk about, anyway, probably need to tighten some of that language up, needless to say there. And I'm sure there's plenty of folks here to weigh in. Senator, you always bring some bills that spark some conversation, so here we go.
Happy to have those conversations. Thank you, Senator.
All right, thank you, Senator. Any further questions? You know, I think that what your bill is intending to do is to make sure that all people who, regardless of the club, regardless of the ideology, they have the capability to form these clubs and in a thoughtful way be able to meet and have discussions in regards to political affiliation, whether you're the Communist Party or TPUSA.
There you go.
I mean, that seems to be what the intent and the impetus behind this is. I think what you're trying to curtail of what happened actually in a district, part of a district that I represent in Lee Summit, where we had a student group form a TPUSA prior to Charlie Kirk's assassination to form in the school. And the school literally allowed for other students to come in, break tables, disrupt, and chase those students out of and basically disband the TPUSA group. That's what this would prohibit. It's not necessarily the content, it's the fact that we're not going to allow the disruption of free exercise of religion or ideological thought process.
Yeah.
Would you
Yeah.
agree with that?
Yes, I would agree with that, Mr. Chair. I appreciate you bringing that up. So this particular legislation is not aimed at any specific ideology, any specific viewpoint. This is a freedom bill. We all have these God-given freedoms that are mentioned in the Constitution, and that it's a requirement of government to acknowledge and protect. And what we've seen across the country is not the same amount of weight given to ideological viewpoints, right? Sometimes there is a preference, there is a prejudice that happens in various educational institutions, and that's not right. The First Amendment protects us all.
That's right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Any further questions? See none. Anyone to testify? We're going to do in support, and then just do one and then the other. So anyone in support, please come forward. Please remember to fill out a witness form and to introduce yourself. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you about protecting student speech. My name is Lathan Watts. I am Vice President of Public Affairs at Alliance Defending Freedom. Our mission at Alliance Defending Freedom is to advance and protect the God-given right to live and speak the truth. We are a global ministry, and we work to advance these rights globally because we believe they are fundamental to human flourishing, and they are endowed to all mankind by our Creator as bearers of His image. These rights are not unique to Americans, but what is unique to America is the extraordinary protection for these rights found in our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. Students should be able to participate in their educational
Can you move your
experience.
microphone just a little? Sorry, because
problem.
people are going to be listening in. Thank you.
Got it. That gives me a chance to correct my order of my comments anyway. After the Civil War, with the passage of the 14th Amendment and its equal protection and due process clauses, which Justice Thomas and others have referred to as the second founding of America, the U.S. Supreme Court, through its incorporation doctrine, began to apply the protections of the U.S. Constitution against the states. Since then, the U.S. Constitution has functioned in the states as a floor but not a ceiling, meaning states are within their rights to provide more protection for their citizens than are found in the U.S. Constitution. They just simply cannot provide less. Students, which brings me to the SPEAKS Act. Students should be able to participate in their education on equal terms as their classmates without fear of punishment or discrimination based on their constitutionally protected speech or beliefs. It's important that students learn from an early age what respectful dialogue and debate look like. Schools can teach civics more effectively when they respect and model constitutional principles, demonstrating them in practice what they teach in theory. No student should fear punishment for respectfully expressing his or her beliefs. Civil discourse is essential to our democratic process and the continued success of our republic. This bill protects and codifies in state law the protection of First Amendment rights that students have under the Constitution, ensuring that no matter who occupies the White House or heads up the Justice Department, regardless of how broad or narrow their view of the First Amendment may be, or even if a future Supreme Court should take a wrong turn on free speech, students in this state would be protected. The Supreme Court has affirmed that students do not shed their constitutional rights to freedom of speech or expression at the schoolhouse gate in Tinker versus Des Moines in 1969. That students may express their opinions if they do so without materially and substantially interfering with the requirements of appropriate discipline in the operation of the school, again from Tinker. SCOTUS has repeatedly held that a school cannot prescribe what shall be orthodox in politics, nationalism, religion, or other matters of opinion. West Virginia State Board of Ed versus Barnett from 1943. Unfortunately, in recent years, my colleagues on our U.S. litigation team have been very busy reminding school districts across the country of these decisions. Back when mask mandates were in effect, an elementary school student named Lydia Booth was forbidden from wearing a mask that read "Jesus loves me," while other students were allowed to wear a mask displaying sports teams, logos, and Black Lives Matter. A Colorado high school student was banned from meeting with other students in an empty room to pray, worship, and discuss religious topics during the free time at lunch. An Indiana student wanted to start a pro-life club at her school, and despite following the school's requirements, was denied recognition of the club. And most recently, across the country, as was mentioned, TPUSA chapters have been censored and denied equal access by their school administrators. including a current case we have in North Carolina, where a student was initially approved and then denied the right to memorialize Charlie Kirk on the school's Spirit Rock. The purpose of this bill is to align state policy with longstanding Supreme Court precedent. In 2014, Missouri took this approach in codifying First Amendment protection for religious speech and has done so successfully without permitting harassment or bullying or any other potential problems that were probably raised at the time of that bill. This bill takes the same approach to political speech, which has been protected by the First Amendment for over 2 centuries. The Supreme Court has established the parameters for speech in the K-12 context. The First Amendment does not prevent school officials from determining that to permit vulgar or lewd speech would undermine the school's basic educational mission. That's Bethel School District versus Frazier in 1986. Schools may take steps to safeguard those entrusted to their care from speech that could reasonably be regarded as encouraging illegal drug use. That's Morse versus Frederick in 2007. Schools can stop threats, bullying, and harassment. SCOTUS has repeatedly held that schools may limit student speech when necessary to maintain order and discipline, and this bill fully preserves that authority. In closing, our founding fathers in Article 3 of the Northwest Ordinance stated that religion, morality, and knowledge being necessary to good government and the happiness of mankind, schools and the means of education shall forever be encouraged. Our founders believed that the purpose of education was to instill in the next generation the civic virtues necessary for them to live as free men amongst free men. Nearly 2 centuries later, President Reagan reminded us that freedom is a fragile thing and never more than 1 generation away from extinction. It is not ours by way of inheritance. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation. By protecting student speech, modeling civil discourse, and reasoned debate, we equip the next generation with the tools to keep our experiment in liberty alive and instill in them a love of liberty which compels them to protect it, not just for those with whom they agree, so that we all might be free. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and if I'm able to answer questions, I will give them my best shot.
Thank you very much for all the information. Appreciate your testimony. Any questions for the witness? See none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else to testify in support? Okay. Last call. Oh, all right. Please remember to fill out a witness form. I know you understand it.
I will be very brief, but I just want to say, Camellia with Peterson with Americans for Prosperity, and we support this bill because we do believe that free speech, free expression is foundational to our society, and just to kind of echo everything that's already been said, we do think that schools should be incubators of critical thinking, robust debate. It's where kids should learn about respectful exchange of ideas and opinions. I do appreciate that this bill also acknowledges that schools need to have the authority to maintain order, and so they still have the latitude for what they need to do with regard to that. But I do think every student should feel free to express opinions that are even different, no matter what anybody around them thinks. And so we support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? See none. Anyone else to testify in support of Senate Bill 909? Going once, going twice. Okay. Is there anyone out in the hall? Because it is I just want to make sure that way we're not having to revisit. Okay. It is an 8 a.m. hearing, and I know. That's my apologies. That wouldn't be my choice of time. But anyway, anyone to testify in opposition for 909, please come forward. Please remember to fill out a witness form.
Good morning, Senator. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Sharon Galway-Jones here today on behalf of the Missouri NAACP and Promo. Just going on record briefly in opposition to this bill in its current form. We worked very well with the senator last year, I thought, to work on the higher ed version of this bill. This version expands that pretty dramatically, and we believe there are some significant problems with the way that it does that, specifically some of the things that Senator Nurnberg was talking about with expanding it into clothing and classroom curriculum and that sort of thing. That's very different than what we did with higher education last year. That bill was limited to club access and access to school resources as opposed to individual student activities, which we believe, especially in a K through 12 scenario where we're not talking about adults, could be extremely disruptive, and this bill would need some more additional protections. So in its current form, we would be in opposition. Certainly always glad to work with the senator, but this has some really dangerous provisions that would allow an individual student to harass their fellow students and put teachers and administrators in a position where instead of instructing our students, they are trying to mediate those disputes on a regular basis. And that's not a good use of time, especially in a K through 12 scenario. So for those reasons, we oppose.
Could you kind of expound exactly what you're meaning, how that it can, how anyone's being impeded upon by having a club?
I'm not talking
Or
about
the clothing?
club specifically. So, for example, we can envision a scenario where a student wears in, and by the way, religious speech is already protected by the very statute that's being amended here. So I'm going to limit what I'm talking about to political ideology, which is the expansion that we are concerned about. So, for example, if you have a student wearing a Pride t-shirt and a student wearing a MAGA t-shirt in the same classroom, and they start having some sort of argument, now you've got a teacher who's sitting there going, well, I can't tell you can't wear those shirts that have offended each other. So now I've got to spend time mediating this dispute or send you both to the principal's office. And on what? Just generally being disruptive. Okay, but like we're taking up classroom time with that as opposed to just saying you can't wear things that are ideological, you can't wear things that are potentially offensive. Again, religious...
So your testimony is that you're against the posting of those things?
My testimony today is that I am in favor of public schools being
Or that they're
able...
disruptive, those sorts of things?
My discussion today is that if we don't allow teachers the freedom to have that determination in their classrooms, that we are putting teachers in a position where they cannot...
So teachers have the right to display those things, but students don't?
I am saying that teachers have the right to conduct their classrooms within the curriculum that is provided in the laws of this state.
Well, I asked that because this weekend at my son's wrestling tournament, I was leaving a high school wrestling tournament, and even my son pointed out that all these classroom windows as we're leaving the high school had pride flags posted in the window, but I didn't see any Christian flags or anything of that nature. So are you saying that those are disruptive and should not be posted in a classroom?
No, I'm saying that the teachers and
So
the
a teacher, it's okay for a
administrators-
teacher, but it's not
because
okay
their
for a
classroom.
student. Well, but it's divisive. You just stated that.
I didn't say it was divisive. I said that it was
Creates
potentially...
conflict. That's what divisive.
It was potentially offensive if you've got two students with different things. But it's the teacher's prerogative and the administrator's prerogative to determine what happens in their school building. It is not a
It's
student's
theirs. I thought it was the
prerogative.
people's school building by taxpayer dollars, ensuring a safe environment. So it's not creating conflict, not creating one-sided argumentation.
That the school board has given discretion to the teachers and the administrators to determine what happens in that building.
Okay.
And it is up to them to determine what students can do or not do while they are in their
So
classroom.
this bill's dealing with clubs, which wouldn't be
It is
during...
not dealing with clubs, Senator.
Well, but regardless, the First Amendment is very broad. The Supreme Court's been very broad in its interpretation, ensuring that people have, including students, have the capability to express themselves. But you think that that shouldn't be the case, but a teacher who's in a position of authority should.
I'm saying that the teacher is in charge of that classroom and the administrator is in charge of that teacher. The school board, which is elected, is in charge of that administrator.
Okay.
The student should follow the rules set by those three bodies that we have empowered as taxpayers and voters to determine how those students behave in the classroom. That should not be determined by an individual student when they can or cannot break dress code rules and that sort of thing. This bill would allow them to do that. If it were limited to clubs, we would have a very different discussion.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any further questions? Senator, proceed.
You know, I'm a person that spent 31 years in education, and I think I disagree with what you're saying. I understand I want teachers to be empowered in the classroom, but I also say that you're putting them, from what your scenario is, in an impossible position. They say, pride flag's okay, this one isn't okay, well, they're going to make half of them mad. I think he's trying to bring it back more toward the center and not maybe put them in the middle of all this so much. And I have a problem with that one person getting to make that decision. I support this one, but I won't support this one. I think you put them in an almost untenable position.
Well, that's not what I'm doing, Senator. I'm saying that this bill gives individual students the ability to make those determinations as opposed to the administrator getting to set the rules for the building of the school.
Well, but I think, maybe I'm wrong, and a senator might be able to answer, but I think that if it's a disruption, they still have the ability to do that. So it's not the Wild Wild West. It's just trying to maybe level things a little bit, but thank you.
I understand what you're saying. Just to respond very briefly, it doesn't just say disruption, it says a pervasive and severe disruption. So I think that, again, there are probably some ways that we can work on this language to make it more clear what we're trying to say, but it is incredibly broadly written the way it is today.
Any further questions? See none. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anyone else to testify in opposition, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Otto Fajan on behalf of Missouri NEA. Speak very briefly, and you'll hear me say similar things a second time on another bill. Our main concern about Senate Bill 909 is this. The existing law, which has been around for a dozen years, relies upon a local board policy, and it also then relies upon the way we deal with any question about student rights, which is whether that is conduct, academic cheating, any of those questions are handled through the normal process at the local level. This creates subsections 11 through 14, which is a whole new chunk, kind of sticks out like a sore thumb with respect to any other parental or student right. It actually creates a private cause of action. Our concern is that this is going to really divert a lot of resources to litigation. There's no need for that. We should be consistent and adjudicate these things through the principal, the superintendent, and the school board through the normal process that we deal with student and parental rights. That's our concern. Happy to answer any questions and happy to work with the sponsor to correct that, what we see as a concern. What we would recommend is you handle this the exact same way this committee handled the cell phone restrictions last year in Senate Bill 68, specifying what the school board's policy should look like. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else to testify in opposition? Going once? Again, was there anybody even in the hallway the last time? Okay, all right. Then I'll stop asking. Anyone to testify in opposition? Are you coming forward? Please remember to fill out a witness form.
Thank you. Hey, Brad, how are you?
Good.
Hi, my name is Cammie Storm. Thank you for having me here and listening to me. I oppose Senate Bill 909 not because I oppose student expression, but because this bill misunderstands the role of public education and the constitutional framework that already protects students. Students already have First Amendment rights in schools. That's settled law. What schools are allowed to do and must do is set academic standards, enforce factual accuracy, and maintain safe learning environments. SB 909 blurs that line by elevating personal belief to the level of demonstrated knowledge. A classroom is not a public forum, and education cannot function if evidence and expertise are treated as optional. This bill also creates a chilling effect for educators when teachers risk litigation for enforcing curriculum or correcting misinformation. The result is not freedom, it is hesitation, inconsistency, and weakened instructor. Ambiguous laws are not enforced evenly. They are enforced selectively, and historically that burden falls on marginalized students, those more likely to be labeled disruptive simply for existing and being visible. SB 909 does not protect students from indoctrination, it protects disruption. It does not strengthen liberty, it undermines educational integrity. If the goal is strong schools, constitutional balance, and real academic freedom, this bill moves us in the wrong direction. I urge you to oppose SB 909.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? So you stated that that kind of got to my original questioning at the beginning of the opposition, that these settings are instructional. So do you think a person in a place of authority should be putting forth their political ideology in the classroom?
I don't think anybody should be putting forth their political ideology in the classroom.
So do you think teachers should be
teachers.
abstain from either or, no matter what their ideology is?
I think in the classroom, we should be teaching our classroom, we should be teaching what's in the curriculum, not our political ideology. That doesn't need to be protected in the classroom because we need to teach math, science, and geology and history and not our opinions of those.
Okay.
We need to teach real history, not made-up history or what we believe history may have been. We need to teach facts, not opinions.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any further questions? See none. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anyone else to testify in opposition? Going once, going twice. Anyone for informational purposes only? See none. Senator, closing remarks?
Yeah, I'll be very brief. I know the committee's got a lot of work to do today. I just want to thank you for your time. Look forward to working with you all to protect the God-given rights of students all across the state.
Thank you, Senator. That will conclude Senate Bill 909. We're going to move to, and the Senator is going to take over. I'm going to have the Parental Bill of Rights, the 948. And I did have a sub distributed as well. I hope you all got it. I want to make sure that you did. So it's pretty minimal. Thank you.
All right, and we are getting ready to hear Senate Bill 948, sponsored by Senator Brattin. Senator, begin when you are ready.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Senator Rick Brattin, 31st Senatorial District, bringing forth, I've had this bill for quite some time, Senate Bill 948, Parental Bill of Rights. Being a parent, is probably one of the greatest blessings an individual can have, the capability to raise a child up to become flourishing members of society. It is probably the greatest honor that there is. I'm actually getting ready to become a grandfather here in about a month. It's amazing that growth and how you're able to pass that torch of growing and teaching and just that responsibility that's really placed on the parent. And that's basically the crux of this, just to ensure that I as a parent have that full control and capability, especially when it comes to the instruction of morals and educational environments, to make sure that I have control of that as a parent. And I think everyone has the intrinsic right. The family unit supersedes all forms of all government. It is the original institution of this planet. So to protect those rights is not just inherent in this nation. It's in human history that parents are at the crux, the core, and the foundation. And we've seen, unfortunately, there's been a wanton desire to try and keep parents out of the instruction, what's being taught, and what this bill does. It's basically just a bill of rights that enshrines that parents have the right to access or the capability to have a say in what is indeed being taught to your kids. And it is within reasonable means, but at the same time, to ensure that regardless, that I have knowledge of exactly what is being poured into my child. The substitute just has a couple changes. I did add my Senate Bill 1029 and that's the last paragraph of the sub of the underlined language. That has to do with financial disclosure. As an auditor, I wanted to make sure that I had full disclosure of an entire county. That way everybody had the capability to have access to where their monies were being spent. I thought if you're having access to all their educational type instruction, I think having access to where their money is being spent is also a part of that, so that's why I rolled that into this sub. And then it also just had one little change to kind of further the reasonable approach to this, and it's on page 3. And if you go to line F, that was included, just making sure that if in terms of people being recorded, kids being recorded, that we're trying to be reasonable in that approach. So I won't belabor the point again. I know we have a very weighted hearing schedule, and be happy to answer any of your questions. Thanks for your time.
Questions for Senator Brattin? Seeing none. Anyone here to testify in support of this piece of legislation, please come forward now. Welcome. State your name. Make sure you got a witness form filled out and begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Senator. My name is Greg Chafflin, Senior Counsel with Alliance Defending Freedom. We analyze proposed legislation for their effect on constitutional freedoms, and we even represent parents across the country when government action deprives them of their right to raise and educate their children. Clients like Dan and Jennifer Mead, who were shocked to learn that employees at their daughter's middle school in Michigan were referring to their daughter by a masculine name and male pronouns without notifying her parents or asking for their consent. And not only that, but the school officials also have altered the girl's official records to remove references to their actions before they sent the records to the home with her parents. By taking action to socially transition the girl without her parents' consent, by deceiving her parents, by concealing the important information, the school district violated the Mead's fundamental parental rights. This bill, as we just said, would clarify the importance of parental rights for all families in Missouri by clearly describing that right as fundamental. It is a fundamental right of parents to direct the upbringing, education, and health care of a child, and to subject any violation of that right to a judicial test that's called strict scrutiny, which is just the strongest legal protection for a right from governmental overreach. Parents love and know their children best. They have the right and the responsibility to make decisions that are in the child's best interest without undue interference from the government. In America, we've known since our founding that we create our government to protect our fundamental God-given rights. Parental rights have been recognized by the U.S. Supreme Court as a fundamental right for more than 100 years. Unfortunately, states continue to take actions that undermine that right, and ADF even represents several clients across the country who have had schools and other government officials hide information from them, lie to them, or just simply ignore them. And then they make consequential decisions for these children without a parent's consent. When families try to do something about it and go to court, they've had to wait and wait with uncertainty while the courts spend time and energy trying to determine what legal test to use to determine the outcome of their case. This bill strengthens families in Missouri by joining 22 other states that have already passed legislation to declare parental rights fundamental. This also applies the strongest legal test to review any state restrictions that are put on those parental rights. This is the same way that the government protects other fundamental rights like religious freedom, speech, and voting. Parents should be able to do something if their fundamental right to raise and care for their child is violated. And in these cases, the outcome is never certain. It's not a one-size-fits-all. But at least it's important to have a clear standard that courts will use when parental rights are violated. The state obviously retains its duty to protect vulnerable children who might be at risk of abuse or neglect. This bill does nothing to interfere with that. Instead, it properly balances the rights of parents and the rights of the state. Schools should partner with parents to educate their children. They should not treat parents as an obstacle or cut them out of important decisions about their own children. Parents also have the right and responsibility to determine the best medical and mental health care for their children. When medical providers or schools hide information from parents, everyone should be concerned. So to conclude, this bill would align Missouri with 22 other states that have already recognized parental rights as a fundamental right. And simply put, no one knows a child's needs better than that child's own parents, who have the right and responsibility to make decisions for the child's best interests without governmental interference. I thank you for your time and am available for any questions you might have.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your time. Thank you for your testimony. Next witness in support. Welcome. Please state your name and begin when ready.
Thank you, Senator. Members of the committee, my name is Chandra Hendren, and I represent Heritage Action, a national grassroots organization with conservative activists nationwide, including many Missourians. We appreciate Senator Brattin bringing forward this bill. SB 948 empowers Missouri parents by establishing a parental bill of rights. Parents are the heart of our communities and the key to raising the next generation. It is only right and fair to ensure parents are informed and included in decisions that involve their children to help them succeed. Currently, more than 20 states already have a version of a parent's bill of rights, and it's time for Missouri to be included in that list. Parents deserve to know they are supported by the state in their journey of rearing their children. SB 948 is a common sense bill that affirms parents' right to be informed, access records, and direct their child's education and healthcare decisions, as well as direct their moral and religious training. The right to protect their children by consenting before any biometric scan is made, shared, or stored, and to opt their child out of any personal analysis or unnecessary data collection. The right to excuse a child from school attendance for religious purposes, the right to participate in parent-teacher organizations, the right to access what their children are being taught in school. Every parent deserves the right to be informed and involved in these things, and I ask you to pass SB 948. Thank you for your time.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else to testify in support of this legislation? Seeing no additional supportive testimony. Anyone here to testify in opposition? Begin when you are ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Once again, Otto Fajan on behalf of Missouri NEA. Really speaking in opposition to this bill, specifically for the same concern we had with the previous bill. If you look at, I think it's page 4, subsection 3, there's a section there specifying essentially cause of action. It's slightly different language from the previous bill, but it presents the same concern. All of our rights as a parent, for our students, they're adjudicated through the administrative process of the school first, through the principal, superintendent, and through and then to the board for a hearing in front of the board. So once again, we would urge that this process be aligned so it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb with regard to all other rights and adjudications. That's our concern. Happy to work with the sponsor on this bill. This language has been in the legislature for a number of years. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none.
Thank you, Mr.
for
Chairman.
being here. Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else here to testify in opposition to the legislation? Welcome. Please state your name and begin when ready.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm David Lee Brush with Missouri Equity Education Partnership, and we have been on record against Parents' Bill of Rights bills in general for a long time, not because we don't believe parents should have rights, but because we believe they already do, and we don't really need to expand the statute. I brought the wrong one up. Sorry. Parents can direct students' education in their schools already. Parents serve on curriculum committees, they volunteer in school, they can opt out of assignments, they can direct education in a variety of ways. What parents shouldn't have the right to do is, number one, micromanage all details of a school or a district, and two, through their actions, make decisions for other people's children, thereby infringing on others' parental rights. So if you have a book that you do not want your child to read, and it's in a person's classroom library, then you should tell your child not to read that book. You should parent your child. But if you remove that book because it is offensive to you, then you have taken away my right as a parent to have my child read that book. There's a lot of other examples we could give. A lot of the rights in here are already available to parents, but subsection 1.4 could actually lead to an infringement of other people's rights. You do have the right, as a parent, absolutely to be the arbiter of moral and religious education. Religious education doesn't belong in publicly funded schools. However, if your family's moral and religious beliefs affect or cause harm to other students, then the school has to curtail that. For example, some parents show their children it's okay to use derogatory terms for people, or that if someone hits you, knock them down, or that girls shouldn't play with boys. None of these tenets are acceptable in a public school, and so schools have to have the right to be able to mediate that. If a parent's moral beliefs negatively impact other students, then that deprives the family of that other family's right to guide their child. It's why schools enforce rules and guidelines that comport with generally accepted societal standards. Regarding sub 2, with the protection of kids and not sharing information, we want to believe that all parents are good and will protect their children no matter what, and most do. But decades in public education has shown us that some don't. And as we have said at MOEAP before, good parents don't glow, and dangerous parents don't always look dangerous until something happens, and then a child is in danger. So we have to leave a lot of discretion up to the schools to be able to make that determination of when a child might be in danger if information is disclosed. Finally, we are concerned that sub 3, we echo MEA's position that the compensatory damages are an issue, and they will put more teachers on the defensive on multiple fronts and drive them away from the profession. So for these reasons, we oppose this bill. Thank you.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony. Next witness in opposition to Senate Bill 948. Seeing none. Is there anyone here to testify for informational purposes only? Begin when ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, honorable members of the committee. I'm Scott Woodruff, Senior Counsel with Homeschool Legal Defense Association, testifying as information to request 3 amendments to the bill that will help prevent possible ambiguities and complications on the ground. My first request is on page 4, line 50. It deals with information relating to student records. I request that the phrase, "for a student of the school district," be added at the end of that sentence to make it clear that that's referring only to data of students in the school district. Without that addition, that could be read by a boots-on-the-ground person as applying to data collection from private schools or home schools. My second request is that under federal law, social workers are required to disclose allegations upon their first contact with a person being investigated. Missouri has never implemented that into state law, and I've handed out copies to the clerk for the exact wording. But I'd like to request that that federal law be implemented. This would be a perfect, logical place to do it while parental rights in the context of government investigations are being discussed. I won't labor you with the actual language. I have handed that in. And my third request for a change is where the bill deals with not requiring the consent of a child to question the child. Because of the slightly awkward way it's worded, it could be construed to mean that if law enforcement or child protective services are involved, the child could be seized and questioned in abrogation of Fourth Amendment rights. And so I'm requesting that on page 30, line 30, page 3, line 30, between unless and the phrase, without abrogating rights secured under the Fourth Amendment be added. That would make it clear that the waiver does not extend to any sort of implied waiver of Fourth Amendment rights. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else to testify for informational purposes only? Begin when you are ready.
Good morning, members of the committee. I'm Mavis Day. I'm here as a registered lobbyist for Missouri Families for Home Education. FHE, founded in 1983, has long held an active interest in safeguarding the freedom of parents to choose home education. In Senate Bill 948, Senator Brattin presents clear wording that would safeguard the fundamental liberty and fundamental interest of parents to direct their own children's education free from undue government interference. When parents choose to teach their own children, the motivation comes from a desire to do what's best for the ones they love. This reality is validated not only by research, but also, for me, by what has been evidenced by the countless families I've known along the way. My husband and I began homeschooling in 1985. Our last child of 6 graduated from our homeschool in 2017. So FHE is following Senate Bill 948 with interest. We have reached out to Senator Brattin's office with some requests for minor change and additional language, and I will include that in my testimony submitted.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anyone else here to testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none. Senator, do you have any closing remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the hearing.
All right, that will conclude our hearing on Senate Bill 948.
All right. Next up, we will go to Senator Gregory's Senate Bill 905. Begin when you're ready, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, David Gregory, District 15, Senate 15, that is, St. Louis County. Before you is Senate Bill 905. It is the Missouri Rangers bill. So right now, school shootings have been on the rise, and they've been on the rise actually since 2008. And unfortunately, it's probably no surprise, we've actually had a record year in school shootings every single year since 2021. 2021, record year. 2022, record year. 23, 24, now 25, record year in school shootings. And so as we know that these school shootings are on the rise, we also know that we're at an all-time low in recruiting and retaining police officers. So we've got a real problem. And a lot of schools they're stuck between, what do we do, how expensive it is to try to get a police officer versus the other option of having an armed security guard that in some people's minds may not have the training or the quality of service that they want in a school, especially when carrying a firearm. So what this bill seeks to do is fix exactly that. This will create an elite style of training for school shootings. And it would be called the Missouri Rangers. And they will be provided all kinds of incredible training, things like close quarter combat, emphasize tactical application within schools, emergency medical response, which is also critical. So, this is not something, it's important to note, it's not something that's going to be required, right? Schools don't have to have a ranger. So this is just an option if they can find the funding, or if there's parents that want to step up, retired military, retired law enforcement officers that are still able to qualify physically. They can step up and volunteer with this credential to help protect our kids in school. So this is just another option. It's not a requirement, but another option to help keep our schools safe. So with that, I will answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Senator, for the bill. Back in 2014, I sponsored the school protection officer. So we have the SRO, which is a law enforcement officer, the SPO, which is a teacher or administrator, has the capability to go through post-training as well. But honestly, a lot of school districts are just terrified at the thought of training people and the firearm. But we live in an unfortunate world today where you have to be able to combat a would-be attacker with the same level of force that they're coming at your students. And I think that's why you're seeing these record shootings, is because people, these thugs, these psychopaths, know that they're soft targets. And I think any way that we're able to make the security hardened and protect students, I'm all about it. And you know, I love the thought of being creative and how we're going to do that. But I think the training does matter. People may not know, but under current statute, a school district can have a teacher carry a firearm with just a CCW. Now, I guess in all else fails scenario, okay, but 8 hours of training with a .22 on a range with 20 rounds is not ample close quarters, like you said, close quarters active shooter training, and it needs to be bulletproof. Not to, no pun or anything, but it needs to be that sort of training that is rock hard. So I'm not trying to filibuster. I love your bill, and any approach we can do to bolster the security of students, we need to be doing it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to add, what makes this particularly more attractive, I think, to school districts is that it's not an employee of the school district, right? So the school district's not on the hook necessarily unless they put themselves on the hook, and we can get into those legal weeds. But this is a contracted security officer, essentially, or a contracted police officer. So it's not an employee of the school district. That prevents a lot of liability problems for the school.
Yeah, I agree. Any questions? See none. Thank you. Anyone to testify in support, please come forward. Don't hesitate. Okay, yeah, thanks. Please remember to fill out a witness form and state your name. Thank you.
Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Derek Spicer. I'm here in favor of Senate Bill 905 for the safety of our children. Thank you.
Al, thank you for your testimony. I appreciate it. Any questions? See none. Thank you. Anyone else in favor, please come forward. Don't be bashful. We don't bite.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. David Jackson, here today, not only in a professional capacity, but also personal in the sense that I'm a constituent of the senator and have a 7- and 5-year-old who attend schools in the district. And I think as all parents, I don't think we have to disagree with the why behind the importance of these type of bills. But I'm also here in professional capacity as a registered lobbyist for Syntegics. And we want to talk about how another piece of this we've talked to the senator about incorporating this called Alyssa's Law that's become prevalent across the country. And Alyssa's Law is named after Alyssa Aldenhoff, who was one of the 17 students killed at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. And after that tragedy, it became clear that faster notification and faster response could have saved lives. And so Alyssa's parents turned that loss into advocacy, focusing on the simple truth that time saves lives. And the senator's bill addresses a huge part of this equation by investing in the people and making sure that people are properly trained. And it ensures we have responders who are prepared to respond to these violent emergencies. Alyssa's Law focuses on the other side of that equation and what happens inside the school from the very first moment that emergency begins, and sets a standard for schools to be able to have a rapid response system set in place with wearable devices that will allow for first responders to map out and know exactly where that situation is occurring. And so we, by background, have had a state system and program that was application-based that has expired. Some of the problems with a pure application base is that when batteries die, apps aren't updated, and you're flustered in the situation of an emergency, they aren't always reliable. And so in that scenario, in our previous system, the state was paying for an application-based system that not all schools were deploying and using. It was very underutilized, and so a lot of schools were opting to use the wearable devices. And so what ELISA's law is set a qualified vendor list. I want to be very clear, this is not an endorsement of one product. There are dozens of states who have implemented this type of framework, and with cost sharing across the board, subject to appropriations in school districts, federal grants. But the goal is to make sure that you have a system in place that provides timely notification when those seconds matter, and to notify law enforcement and trigger a campus-wide lockdown. So again, Senate Bill 905 answers the question of who is responding and how they're trained, and ELISA's law answers the question of how quickly they're notified and what information do they have when they arrive. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Senator.
Anyone else to testify in support, please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Tim Whitney. I'm the undersheriff for Jefferson County here in Missouri. I've served the citizens of Jefferson County for 23 years, and I'm going to give you a really brief little bit about my background because I think it's important in my perspective in support of this bill. As a large part of my career, I was responsible for our department SWAT team, meaning I commanded it. I was responsible for the training and preparation to lead this team in crisis, and ultimately led the team through some critical incidents and saw the importance of training and how that plays out. Additionally, I was responsible for training hundreds of police officers in our region for response to active shooter events, and also trained hundreds of civilians, most notably school teachers and faculty, on how to increase survivability in these incidents. So it's important to me, but beyond my professional experience, I'm also married to a school educator. My wife Stephanie's been a teacher, teaching 7th grade language arts for 23 years. I have a daughter who's a sophomore in high school and a son who's in 7th grade. So the reality is public safety and school safety is not an abstract concept to me. It is a very real thing, and as most people in this room do, when you send your children off to school, you say a prayer for their safety. I'm here today in strong support of Senate Bill 905 because it represents a practical and responsible approach to improving preparedness and response during crisis situations, especially those in and around our schools. One of the most important lessons I learned over two decades in law enforcement, especially preparing SWAT team members for critical incidents, is that training truly does matter. What we see in critical incidents is how people respond is not based on good intentions. People fall back to their level of training, and there's a number of factors that play into that. Most of them are physiological responses. When responders and trained personnel share common standards, language, and expectations, chaos is reduced and lives are saved. This bill takes this reality very seriously. It establishes a structured post-certified training program for Missouri Rangers. This legislation ensures that individuals entrusted with emergency and crisis response are not operating under vague or inconsistent guidelines. Instead, they are trained under uniform standards with clear legal authority, accountability, and oversight, things that matter in those incidents. From a law enforcement perspective, I can't overstate the value of consistency and professionalism in crisis response. When roles are unclear or training uneven, hesitation and confusion cost lives. And as we've seen in notable incidents on the national stage, when first responders or people on scene are unclear their roles or responsibilities in those early moments, additional lives are lost. And I believe this bill is not to replace law enforcement, but I think this really strengthens the ecosystem of safety in our local schools. So from a parent's perspective, I think this bill sends a powerful message, and that is Missouri is serious about preparedness, not just reaction. And we recognize we cannot train for emergencies after the tragedy happens. We must invest in proactive programs that prepare people before the worst day arrives. And from personal experience and what I've seen in my years in law enforcement is when there's a national tragedy, we'll get dozens of requests at the sheriff's office from schools, from boards, from community groups that want us to come and train, prepare, and build plans for survivability. But as time passes, memory fades, and these become less important. So we end up with this peaks and valleys. And I think programs like this will offer a more disciplined approach to school safety. So I think this is a thoughtful measure and step forward. It balances authority with accountability, preparedness with professionalism, and urgency with responsibility. And it reflects what real-world experience has taught me, and that is structured training saves lives. So again, I support this bill, and I thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Senator, proceed.
Tim, thank you for coming up here today. I know what a great job you do for Jefferson County up there and trying to prepare it and get it ready. And I've kind of been through this in my other life. About 31 years old, I was a high school principal. Columbine happened. And a child drops a note in the bathroom saying there's a bomb in the building. And then we're dealing with it. And I look up and there's helicopters and we're trying to do it. ATF back then, I don't even know if that's true anymore, used to put out plans on how you try to deal with some of these things. And then if you remember over in Heath, Kentucky, some of these kids, some of the bad guys aren't dumb. They knew what the plan was, so they pulled the fire alarm, and when they left, they shot them as they left because they followed the ATF plan. So people doing what you just said is the key, that they've been trained, they can adapt, and they can do what they need to do. But thank you for coming up and testifying on this.
Thank you, sir.
Now, I haven't seen in the bill, but maybe I overlooked it. Is there a duty to act in this provision with these rangers? I support law enforcement, but I also saw with Uvalde where we saw officers with an unlocked freaking door as students are being literally massacred and executed, and they didn't act, and they have a provision that protects them, that they don't have to act if it puts them in danger. When these are kids, I'm sorry, if you're putting yourself in a role like this, I think you should have a duty to act regardless of your safety.
Yeah, you have a legal duty to act. I didn't put it in here, but you would absolutely have a legal duty to act.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much for your testimony. Appreciate your expertise. Anyone else to testify in support? Please come forward.
Good morning. Jay Schroeder, Missouri FOP, here to testify in support of Senate Bill 905. As myself, I've been involved in 3 active shooter cases over my police career. The first one was something that probably wouldn't apply to this, but the second one was an ABB shooting where they had untrained security guards. A gentleman came in and shot multiple people inside a business. And the training of the security guard ultimately failed that business, so I can see where the training and upping the training would be excellent in this. Also, as being part of the CVPA shooting in St. Louis a few years back, having a trained guard in there probably would have changed that whole situation. There were unarmed security guards when the gentleman entered the building. Having somebody in there armed that could have responded. Now, granted, the police response from St. Louis City was dynamic. 4 to 5 minutes they were in the building and had the shooter contained, but we may not even have gotten that far if you would have had somebody in the building.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony. Any questions? See none. Thank you. Anyone else to testify in support? Please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Dave Meyer. I'm testifying in support of Senate Bill 905 on behalf of the St. Louis County Police Association. The St. Louis County Police Association would like to thank Senator Gregory for bringing this important safety legislation forward. I'll be very brief in my testimony in support of this bill. With the rise in police shootings, the St. Louis County Police Association has been approached by several of our retired members and soon-to-be retired members of our department who expressed interest in continuing their service and becoming a Missouri Ranger. Becoming a Missouri Ranger would allow these qualified individuals an opportunity to protect not only their own children and grandchildren, but our children and grandchildren. Upon completing the necessary training, these individuals will be an asset to the schools and the active duty police officers. Thank you for your time, and we appreciate your support of this bill.
Thank you. Appreciate your service. Any questions? See none. Thank you. Anyone else to testify in support? Going once, going twice. Okay. Anyone to testify in opposition? Please come forward.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. Susan Myers of the 20th. I volunteer as State Director of Women for Gun Rights, am a member of Armed Women of America, having just stepped down as chapter leader after 7 years. I currently lead my church's safety team and am a member of the Faith-Based Security Network. All this to say, I am all about advocating for and educating on carrying of firearms for personal protection as well as in defense of others. In opposing SB 905, I debated whether to select informational purposes instead, because while I strongly support the bill's intent to get more armed and willing protectors into our schools, simply put, I vigorously support Missouri's Volunteer School Protection Officer program, and it is where I feel the legislature should look if seeking to expand, mandate, and/or help fund our schools' armed protection of our most precious children, treasures, our kids. Expanding it to include other employees and retired LEO, even civilians, I would be for that. As to the bill and the information and suggestion side of things, there's a couple things I feel compelled to address. The training program is set up with 3 categories of applicant: civilian, law enforcement, and military. Firearms training and defensive tactics are among the listed training of each group, though under both the active and retired law enforcement and military applicant, it reads abbreviated firearms training and abbreviated defensive tactics. Absolutely not. Anyone seeking to step into the role as frontline defender of our children needs to show what they are capable of today, not getting to rely on past performance or job description as a shortcut into the position. Jack Wilson was 71 years old back in 2019 when he drew his pistol and dropped an active shooter from 45 feet away in his Texas church within seconds of the start of the attack. This is the skill and capabilities I want to see applicants push to strive towards. I mention Mr. Wilson because I worry someone like him would be refused Missouri Ranger certification simply because they are unable to pass the rigorous physical requirements of the program. I believe there should be a mission focus on the training aspect of the bill. Do they have a protector mindset, the heart for children, and the ability to stop an active threat at the instant they have a clear sight picture and a safe shot? That is what I care about. Lastly, although I heard him mention it here, I didn't see any sort of stop the bleed type training mentioned, and it definitely needs to be added. Past shootings have shown that victims bleed out and die while the buildings are being cleared and EMT is forced to wait outside. Those on scene need to be trained to perform these life-saving techniques during that time gap. I thank the bill sponsor for his desire to enhance the armed protection of our schools, and I hope he forgives me for being unable to offer my full support at this time.
Thank you for your testimony. Does anybody have any questions? Now, with the abbreviated training, I definitely I could see a potential need to revise that, because there are branches like the Navy and the Air Force actually don't go through initial firearms training. They don't qualify. Like in the Marine Corps, you had to do that level of training. Where like in Air Force, I don't believe it's as a basic standard of requirement for their military service. I don't think firearms training is even a part of Air Force and I'm pretty sure most Navy don't have to qualify on the firearm. Am I correct in that, Senator?
I would agree with you, Chair. And
Yeah.
I would add Space Force and
In Space Force, yeah, no, that's right. Laser beams,
I
maybe.
think we honestly have to even question whether the Army, at this point.
Yeah, you have two Marines on here that may have a little bit
to
of.
enhancing the training of firearm use. That's right. Yes.
May I speak to that?
You may.
I would just say firearm skills are perishable skills.
They are.
That's why I wanted to stress that
Okay.
part. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I'm sure you're willing to work with us on this, so perfect. Thank you very much for your testimony. Anyone else to testify in opposition? Please come forward. Nope, okay, all right. Anyone else to testify in opposition? Going once, going twice? Oh, four? Okay. Well, we're going to jump back because we've had people coming in. Is there anyone else to testify in support? Because I think I did see some others coming in. If not, go ahead. You can come forward and testify in support. Please remember to fill out a witness form.
Will do, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
So I just pulled in. I'm sorry, I'm running a little late. But, for the police departments, I'm sorry, my name is Lieutenant Colonel Jason Law from the St. Louis County Police Department. We're here in support. We believe this will give us extra people on the street and then still have highly qualified individuals in the schools. So we think that's really important for us. Retention and recruitment's difficult in the police departments right now. So having something like this to supplement our forces would really help.
Well, thank you, and appreciate you coming. Any questions? See none. Thank you. Please don't forget to fill out the witness form. All right, back to opposition. Anyone in opposition? Okay. Informational purposes only. Okay. All right, seeing none. Senator, closing remarks?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to both you, Mr. Chair, and Senator Weber doing this program with me when we pass it.
Let's do it. It's the initial PFT. We should be good. All right, thank you. That concludes the hearing on Senate Bill 905. We are going to move to Senate Bill 998. Senator, you may, for the second time, it's the Senator Hudson show today. Please proceed.
Well, thank you again, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, once again, this is Senator Brad Hudson representing District 33. Senate Bill 998 is what I'm presenting this time. Senate Bill 998 creates, repeals, and modifies provisions of the Missouri Empowerment Scholarship Accounts Program. This act modifies the definition of qualified student by removing the requirement for a qualified student to have attended a public school during the previous 12 months, as well as removing requirements relating to students' kindergarten eligibility and siblings who participate in the program. Such a definition is further modified by adding disability diagnosis to requirements concerning individualized education plans. The Act provides that an organization representing a group of parents of qualified students may intervene on behalf of such parents as a defendant in any action in which any provision of state law, the Missouri Constitution, or state regulation involving the program is at issue. An organization that intervenes as provided in the Act shall have the right to file such pleading necessary on behalf of such parents. Finally, except as specifically provided in state law, the Act prohibits the creation or enforcement of any rule, regulation, or other requirement that conditions a qualified school's participation in the program on accreditation or compliance with any other requirement. Any rule, regulation, or other requirement that violates this provision is void and shall have no force or effect. In my district, we have excellent public schools, and I'm proud to support them. That is not, however, the case across our entire state. Fundamentally, I do not believe a child's educational journey or a parent's options should be limited by zip code. That rings true for Senate District 33 as well as the rest of the state. I am presenting this legislation because citizens in my district across many of the counties I represent have asked for more access to the Mo Scholars program. I have a long legislative history of supporting public schools, with more to come. I am also an advocate for school choice and parents being able to determine their students' educational pathway. Those two things are not and do not have to be mutually exclusive. Fundamentally, when discussing education, we must look at what is best for students and their families. Year after year, we hear testimony from families about how the ability to have choice in education is helping children across our state. Why should we be placing arbitrary limitations on students that could benefit from access to the program? This is by no means an end to the conversation of school choice in Missouri, but it is my hope that it is the beginning of an expanded one. I thank the committee for their time, and I'm happy to take any questions if you have any.
Chairman Brattin had to step out for a minute, so any questions for Senator Hudson? Seeing none, thank you very much. So we'll start with those who want to testify in support. Please come forward, make sure you have your form, and identify yourself and proceed.
Yes, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, education committee members. My name is Pastor Todd Allen Sines. I'm here to support the Bill of 998. I'm a parent who currently has 2 children, and I'm an assistant pastor at Ministries United Free Methodist Church in Florissant. I'm here today in support of the measure to allow all age grade level students in the state of Missouri to be allowed a Missouri scholarship to attend private schools. My wife and I chose to send one child to Brattin Mines private school since she was 9 months old, and she is here with me today, sleeping. The other child my wife and I have taken care of since she was 3 years old, and she went to Brattin Mines private school. She is a senior now and on the honor roll. Brattin Mines private school also helps parents with their tuition costs. We are one of those parents who have also had to have a special payment plan for our children during their time at Brattin Mines private school. My youngest child attends Brattin Mines private school for programs they offer that she cannot get at her present school. Parents like me who own their own homes in Florissant and pay property taxes have just as many struggles with the rising cost of tuition to send their children to private schools for the reason I have stated above. The passage of this very important bill before you will help many students strive in their education. These students want to be among the future leaders of tomorrow. Aside from my duties as assistant pastor, I spent 10 years at Brattin Mines private school teaching, helping those kids in need, and I saw how those parents struggled with the cost of education for their kids. I just want to say that for myself and my wife, who is a retired Navy veteran, we are extremely supportive of this bill passage that will help families to ensure kids who struggle and need to get a good education to take care of themselves as future adults. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? See none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you for coming. Anyone else to testify in support? Please remember to fill out a witness form and state your name. Thank you.
Yes, good morning, committee. Yes, my name is Philip Huntley. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm retired. 30 years experience, building maintenance. Yes, my grandkids attend Brattin private school. Yes, they've been taught to education, ministry, and everything. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming down and being willing to testify. Right. Please remember to fill out a witness form to us, for us as well. Any questions? See none. Thank you, sir. Anyone else testify in support? Please come forward.
Good morning. Thank you, Senators. My My name is Chris Peterson. I'm a teacher and a coach at Westminster Christian Academy in St. Louis County, Town and Country. My title is Director of Special Services, and I oversee our Pathways program at Westminster. We serve 100 Westminster students who require service and accommodation at Westminster. I'm here to testify for the broadening of current eligibility for students who have educational disability and seeking private educational assistance with the Most Scholars Scholarship. I want to be clear, like, Most Scholars is an incredible blessing to many who cannot otherwise afford Christian education. And I can confidently promote the program in my position working with families at Westminster. I can say that I'm the recipient also of the program. I have 4 children, 2 of them receive the scholarship. Currently, as you know, eligibility for one pool of recipients applying for the scholarship is contingent upon the reception of a public school IEP following protocols consistent with Public Law 94-142. I can say that this process, while ensuring standardization, comes at a cost. There's a category of students who are in fact identified, evaluated, diagnosed through other means. My own son, Joseph, currently attends Westminster. He's an 8th grader, and he's in this category. Following an evaluation from our public school district, which would ultimately deny eligibility for special education, he was later diagnosed with dyslexia from a private diagnostician. He currently receives service and accommodation at Westminster as his profile was affirmed through a private, qualified, and valid diagnostic process. And this is not to slight anybody in the public school special education system, nor at Most Scholars, for adopting the process in their means for determining eligibility. Joseph was well served in our public school experience, and he was able to actually receive the scholarship since he transitioned from public to private school. I think there are other models to investigate and evaluate for broadening the program's eligibility for students who have a verified educational disability receiving accommodation. Colleges, universities, ACT, College Board are all entities that would provide accommodation for educational and national standardized assessments. They hold a consistent legal process. These processes could be investigated for program fit. So again, I'm beyond grateful for the blessing of Most Scholars, the program, and those who have made it work, doing great work. I would simply affirm the continued efforts to make the program more accessible.
Thank you for coming down and your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you. Anyone else to testify in support, please come forward.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Heather Smith, and I'd like to share with you why SB998 is, quite frankly, my family's last hope. Excuse me. I have plenty more to say, but for the essence of time, we're going to do a nice summary of what I've got written here, and I just ask that each of you read it, what I am submitting. We initially chose public school for our son, but back in kindergarten in 2019, he went from a happy, full of life little boy to a scared, withdrawn child. To this day, I don't know what happened in that classroom during 2019, but the COVID shutdown became the biggest blessing to our family as he no longer had to face that environment. After kindergarten, we knew that our son needed something different. Financially, we were stretched far too thin to be able to afford private tuition. He attended first grade again in public school from 2020 to 21, but it still wasn't a great fit. Second grade was when everything changed. We worked incredibly hard to get our finances in order, and we were able to enroll our son at Summit Christian Academy for 21 to 22. Sorry. My husband had a full-time job. That's always been solid, and I worked full-time for the state, plus part-time at a restaurant. We barely scraped by, but within weeks, he began to thrive. His entrance test showed that he was in the 98th and 95th percentile in both math and comprehension. He had eventually told us that he was just bored in public school, spending most of his days waiting for other kids to listen instead of learning. The change was nothing short of miraculous. Within weeks, the happy, vibrant child that we knew before kindergarten was back. I still tear up thinking about it. Higher expectations and individual attention had him thriving. So we, of course, enrolled our daughter there for her kindergarten year in 22 to 23. So we had both of our children there all the way through last school year, which is kind of why I have the tears, I'm sorry. The financial strain has been absolutely crushing to our family. I had to leave a job that I loved for higher income, which is great, but we've also had to refinance our home multiple times. Thank you. After last school year, we decided to face reality that this choice for the best education for our kids was absolutely destroying us financially. We made the difficult decision to pull our son, so he is now attending online school through Liberty University Academy Online. He continues to thrive, but greatly misses his friends and sports. So this brings me back to why this bill is my last hope. You see, my kids were already attending SCA when most scholars expanded into Cass County, and when it changed the income requirement. These were great expansions, and they were needed changes. I sit here today, and I thank you for each of them, but those changes didn't help my family. The additional funds to the Missouri Scholars is also an incredible advancement, but it still doesn't help us yet because we have already attended a private school. A great education for each individual child can look different for every single child. It is not a one-size-fits-all option. While public school works for some, private schools work better for others, and homeschooling works better for others. It should absolutely be a parent's choice, and that choice should not bring a family so far underwater financially that there's little to no way out. Now, with SB 998, you have the opportunity to help families like mine who are doing everything that they can to give their children the best possible education that fits their individual needs by alleviating some of the financial burden by making Missouri Scholars an available option by removing the public school requirement. Thank you very much for your time. Sorry for the tears.
Now, thank you for your testimony. I'm a Cass Countyan, and I have two kids that are also in SCA, and it's a huge struggle, for families that aren't able to qualify for this. So I appreciate your story, and I know we've talked before, and thanks for your courage to come forward.
Thank you.
Any questions? See none. Thank you very much. Anyone else to testify in support, please come forward.
Camelia Peterson with Americans for Prosperity, and that is what I have heard for years. Sorry. I'm a longtime homeschool mom. This is an issue not only important, a priority for Americans for Prosperity, for the good of our nation, for our state, but this is also important to me personally as well, because even as a longtime homeschool parent, I will be the first to tell you that it's not the right option for everyone, and parents need the best options they can get for their children. My own daughters have been to, primarily homeschooled. Last few years we've done a hybrid. That's what best fit my younger daughter. She is in full private for the last couple of years due to some of the circumstances of our school shutting down. Most scholars probably would have helped that as well had this expansion been in place at that time. I have heard stories like this one for years now. I've had a missionary family who came back home looking for options for their kids. They did not qualify for most scholars because of the limitations like this. Just this last fall, had a lady from Grandview over by Kansas City, and she was asking for help because her 15-year-old son had not been doing well in the public school. He was bright. He had demonstrated that. He did not test well. She brought him home, but she knew for him that he needed more of the social interaction too. But she was stuck then because this precluded her from being eligible for the Most Scholars Program. So I very much appreciate this bill to expand the ability to participate to more students. I also would like to point out, too, that we do appreciate that this also protects the Most Scholars Program from regulatory overreach, because that has been an issue that has been raised from a lot of parents as well, and we've had some issues with that, with the agency overseeing that in the past. I think that a lot of those things have been taken care of, but for the future, I think this is a good protection in place. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your testimony. Any questions? See none. Thank you. Anyone else testify in support, please come forward. Please remember witness form and to state your name.
Good morning, distinguished committee and chairman. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Donnell Johnson, and I just wanted to say this morning, I am here to support the SB998. I stand before you as a community member, but more importantly, as a single father. Like any parent, my daily life is a balancing act. I'm managing the rent, utilities, food, gas, many things that cost, with the cost rising right now. All while trying to ensure my children have the absolute best foundation for their future. And not just my children, many others in our communities. The need for specialized environments, we know that every child learns differently. In my experience, private schools offer the extra help that's the specialization of attention that some kids desperately need to unlock their potential. My son had an IEP, and this is a perfect example. The unique environment of a private school didn't just help him get by, it allowed him to excel so much that when he entered the public system, he was already ahead of the curve, graduating a semester above the other students. The economic reality for parents, but here is the reality. For a single parent, the choice shouldn't be between keeping the lights on and giving your child the education they need. Currently, the extra help is often behind a paywall that many hardworking families can't reach. By providing state-level funding for private schools, just as we do for public schools, you aren't just funding a building. You are funding a child's opportunity. You are taking the weight off of the shoulders of parents who are doing everything right, but just need that extra hand from the state to get their kids into the right environment. The community benefit. When we fund these schools, they can extend the hand even further. They can reach more kids in need and provide more resources. This isn't a competition between school types. It's a partnership. A partnership between, it's a partnership between our children's success, and it is determined by their talent and hard work, not by their parents' bank account. In closing, I want my kids to have the best. Every parent in this state wants the same. Let's make that a reality by supporting state funding for all educational paths. Thank you, and thank you for your time.
No, thank you very much for your testimony. It's fantastic. Any questions? See none. Thank you. Anyone else to testify in support, please come forward. Looks like you already have your witness form. All right. May begin when you're ready.
Hi, my name is Jenny Johnson. I'm the Executive Director at Christian Chapel Academy in Columbia. We're a small private school. Thank you for this opportunity to come and testify in support of Senate Bill 998. Each month, we have an increasing number of parents apply to our school, which shows a growing demand for high-quality, flexible education options. This bill will ensure more families can access these options. Since 2022, our school has worked closely with families navigating the Most Scholars program with the support of the Herzog Foundation. We have seen firsthand how life-changing this program has been for our families who desire safe, stable, and academically rigorous learning environments, but who simply cannot afford it on their own. Families come to us seeking smaller class sizes, classrooms where teachers can focus on instruction, where children feel safe, and where students are challenged to reach their full potential. For many families, Most Scholars has made this possible. However, we often encounter families who desire these same things but cannot do it due to current eligibility requirements. Many of these families turn to homeschooling not by choice but out of necessity. Because of safety concerns, bullying, ongoing classroom disruptions, or a lack of academic rigor. They made difficult sacrifices to make this work, but over time found it was not sustainable long term. And because their children were no longer enrolled in public school, they are ineligible for Most Scholars, making private education not an option. Even families who initially chose homeschooling can face circumstances beyond their control. Just last week, we had a homeschool family apply with a daughter entering second grade. She had a 2-year-old brother that was recently diagnosed with a serious health condition, and it required extensive care. Homeschooling is no longer an option for them, but they are not confident with their local public school system. But as they face mounting medical expenses, private school still is not an option for them due to the eligibility requirements of Most Scholars. This need also extends beyond homeschool families, as you've already heard. Many of our current school families are making huge sacrifices to send their kids to our school. Expanding Most Scholars eligibility would significantly ease the burden to these families who simply want the best education for their students. At its core, this issue asks a simple question. If funds are allocated to a child's education, why shouldn't all families have the same choice to make, the same decision to make for their child's education? Most Scholars ensures that more Missouri children have access to safe, effective education. And expanding eligibility would ensure more Missouri families can access education that their children deserve. Thank you.
What would you say the growth of your school has been, just, not to try to put you on the spot, but I mean, just in the past few years, have you seen an explosion of wants and desires to come to the school?
Yes, every year we have to add a second grade to the class. We are currently at capacity. We have waiting lists for our classes. We're out of space, so we have to try to build a new building and raise money for that. We have people applying every day.
Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm. Any questions? See none. Thank you very much for your testimony. Anyone else to testify in support, please come forward. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Jean Evans, American Federation for Children. We'd like to go on the record in support of this legislation.
Any questions? See none. Thank you.
Thanks.
Please stay. Don't leave. Anyone else to testify in support? Okay. See none. Anyone to testify in opposition, please come forward. Please remember to fill out a witness form. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is David Lee Brush with the Missouri Equity Education Partnership, and our position on vouchers has not changed. We believe that public money should go to public schools and be used to shore up public schools. But the part of the, and we do applaud that this bill does add IEP students to the mix now and make them eligible. We are happy about that. But the part that concerns us is that when vouchers were passed, The argument was kind of made that we would promote competition from public schools, compelling public schools maybe to improve in order to keep students. But this bill kind of does the opposite. Public schools have a lot of rules, regulations, benchmarks, and guidelines that have to be met, and this body holds public funding like a carrot or a stick to compel schools to follow the rules they establish. And there are bills every session, including this session, that would increase financial transparency for taxpayers, which we are in favor of. But this bill does not. It removes the transparency for any school or FPE that receives a voucher through the ESA. They don't have to follow the guidelines to get funding. They can get the funding and not have to have accountability to that. And this body, when they pass the voucher bill, appropriating $75 million of taxpayer money, then that should have some accountability for it. If public schools need transparency to get public taxpayer money, then so should any school that gets public taxpayer money. This kind of creates an incredibly lopsided competition paradigm and places public schools at a disadvantage. And it feels like it's starting a foot race but ties the public school shoelaces together. So we oppose the bill on these grounds. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Thank you so much.
Anyone else to testify in opposition, please come forward. Sorry, I thought they were getting up to testify. Anyone else to testify in opposition? Going once, going twice. All right. Informational purposes only. Please come forward. Okay. Seeing none. Senator, closing remarks.
Yeah, just real quickly, I'll say of all the pieces of legislation I've worked on in my legislative career, I don't know when I have had something that has received so much support from such a diverse group of Missourians. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, I've served 7 counties in southern Missouri. They're talking about most scholars in at least 5 of those 7 counties. They're supportive of legislation like this. And as you've heard today, there are other areas. We've just scratched the surface. We absolutely can empower parents to make the choices that they need to be able to make to direct their children's education and also support our public schools. It is not an either or, and this is something that we all need to work together because as we continue to face these hurdles and have these problems and these conflicts, children are the ones that are suffering. So I would love to work with this committee and anyone else to help support education in the state of Missouri. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much. And that does conclude the hearing. And I make a motion to adjourn the Committee on Education. Second. And we are adjourned. Thank you all.